Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out and for coming alongside of our family as we make our way through this day. I've probably done, I figure, about 50 funerals or so in the 25 years that I've been here. This one will be a little different, of course, but we're going to do what we always do. We're going to look to the written word. We're going to look to the scriptures to find God's promises, His words of comfort and reassurance and words of truth. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Dad, and as a way of honoring and remembering and celebrating his life. And then we're going to look to the living word. We're going to look to Jesus and how we're going to talk about how his presence has been with us and continues to be with us. In fact, will always be with us. And it's his presence with us that makes all the difference in the world right now. Jesus knows how difficult last week was for Dad. And for those of us who love him. In fact, Jesus knows how difficult these past few years have been for Dad and those of us who love him. And yet we all know that Jesus never promised us a life that was free from difficulties and all kinds of challenges. But what he did promise us is that he would be with us and walk with us when these times come. There's just an incredible promise that God made to his children thousands of years ago. I go to these words often when I find myself just in need of encouragement, reassurance, because I'm convinced that the promises that God made back then still hold true today. God says to each of us, it's in Isaiah chapter 41, "So do not fear, for I am with you, and do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand, for I am the Lord, your God, takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." So God's here to uphold us, and he's going to do it during this gathering, and he's going to do it as we're at the graveside, and later today when all of us have gone back to our respective homes. God's going to continue to be with us, and he's going to help us, and he's going to uphold us and comfort us with just this awareness, the sweetness of his presence. And so let's allow God to just reassure us with that truth, this awareness, and look to him to help us through this day and the days to come. Would you pray with me? Lord Jesus, we know that your presence is with us right here, right now. And because you are here, I trust that you will keep your promise to strengthen us and to help us and to hold us. I ask that you'll bring your comfort and your strength and your love to Mom and to Judy and to Bob and all of our family and all of our friends. Lord, thank you for each of them, and thank you for the love that you have for each of them. I ask that you'll bring peace to all of our hearts and give our family the wisdom to know how to be a blessing to others, even as others have come to be a blessing to us. May your presence and your love be evident to all of us who are gathered here today. I ask in your name, in Jesus' name, amen. William Earl Shank, age 82, of Waynesboro, passed away on Sunday, September 13th, 2020, at Providence Place in Chambersburg. Born January 27th, 1938, in Waynesboro, Dad was the son of the late Amos H. and Margaret Lehman Shank, and he was a lifelong resident of the Waynesboro area. Dad was a graduate of Waynesboro Senior High with the class of 1955. He and Mom were married on July the 28th, 1956, in the Trinity United Church of Christ here in Waynesboro. And Dad was employed at Landis Tool Company for 33 years, from 1955 to 1988. He later was a partner in S&S Design from 88 until 89, and Waynesboro Design Services from 89 until 1996, and he retired in July of 96. He was a Protestant by faith and a member of the Waynesboro Country Club, where he served on the board of directors, Rotary Club of Waynesboro, Southern Engineering Society, served on the board of the Waynesboro YMCA, and as a trustee of the YMCA Endowment Fund, board of directors for Quincy United Methodist Home, United Way of Waynesboro, United Way of Franklin County, and the Waynesboro Area Industrial Heritage Trust, where he was the past president. Dad enjoyed golfing and woodworking. And in addition to Mom, he is survived by 3 children, Judith A. Wrights and her husband Eric of Waynesboro, myself, William A. Shank, and my wife Karen of Chambersburg. Robert A. Shank and his wife Laura of Chambersburg, formerly of Waynesboro. 6 grandchildren, Julie, Jana, Jordan, Benjamin, Tyler, and Olivia. 12 great-grandchildren, a sister, May Hudson of Baldwin, Missouri, and several nieces and nephews. In addition to his parents, Dad was preceded in death by 3 sisters, Betty Klein, Margaret Drury, and Mildred Rock, and 1 brother, C. Robert Miller. I said earlier that one of the things that we want to do is talk a little bit about Dad and his life as a way of honoring him. I have 2 tributes to share from some of Dad's grandchildren, and then I'll share on behalf of Judy and Bob and myself. First one here comes from Jordan, grandson Jordan. My name is Jordan Wrights, and I was and will continue to be proud to call Bill Shank my grandfather. It is rare for me to find a time where I am at a loss for words, but at this moment, that is exactly what I am. Perhaps it is fitting. My pap was never a man of many words, but when he talked, you listened. He was sharp, and every word he spoke and decision he made was with purpose. He always had a plan, and it was always well thought out. He had a knack for knowing what needed to be done and then sticking to his guns. Some might describe this as stubborn, and at times he could be. As one local business leader once told me about his experience working for Pap at Landis Tool many years ago, there was Bill's way and there was the wrong way. I chuckle every time I think of that quote because I know exactly what he was talking about, and I imagine having my Pap as a boss. On the surface, it may not seem like the most flattering quote, but it is to me because I know how much Pap cared. I know that at the root of every decision and plan he made were the best interest of those around him, even if those employees, friends, or in my case, grandson, didn't realize it at the time. I am biased, but I honestly believe that Pap was so sharp and methodical in his planning and thinking that he knew what was best for many people, long before they knew what was best for themselves. This is one of the many reasons it was so difficult to watch his mind deteriorate over these past several years. While I have always admired his bright mind, Pap's heart was equally as impressive. Whether it be time, money, or energy, my Pap was the most generous person that I have ever known. He was frequently building projects in his workshop for others or giving his time to local organizations. The only time he disliked it was when if you tried to give him credit. I will always remember playing in a baseball tournament when I was about 8 years old. We were about midway through the game, and it was time to announce the winner of the 50-50 drawing. I was playing second base, and the winning number was called. Between pitches, I watched Pap get up out of his chair and walk around behind the bleachers to the concession area. Soon, they would announce the winner's first and last name, as well as the amount that was won. 8-year-old me was just as excited to hear my Pap's name over the loudspeaker as I was for my snow cone after the game. As I waited to hear how much Bill Shank had won, the voice came across the loudspeaker and said, "The winner of tonight's 50-50 was Bill, and he has donated his winnings back to the league. Thanks, Bill." Even at that young age, I knew what had just happened. I realized Pap didn't buy that ticket to win any money. He bought the ticket to support the league with no plans to receive any winnings, even if his number was called. It was all about giving back, and he wasn't about to give them his last name or make it about him in any way. It was just Bill. Grandma and Pap came to many of my sporting events over the years. This wasn't the only time that Bill donated his winnings back to the league or unselfishly gave a piece of himself with no expectation or desire for anything in return. This memory is the epitome of Pap's generosity that has benefited our community over the years. It seemed like he never missed an opportunity to donate, though many would never know. When I see the way my grandma, my mom, and my uncles unselfishly give themselves to their families and communities, it's not hard to see Pap's influence. My Pap has been and will be sorely missed by myself and all those who knew him best. Sometimes you had to be next to him to realize all the ways he cared for those around him and all the ways he looked after us. The bout with Alzheimer's was a difficult time, and I'm so grateful for my grandma, my mom, and my uncles and the way they helped care for him. While it is hard right now, I'm eager to now remember Pap as the man that he was. Though there are many things I wish to remember about Pap, I will leave you with my personal choice as a favorite lasting image in my mind. Pap and I always tried to go golfing a few times a summer. As a young boy, I couldn't come close to competing with him, but he taught me as we went, and I always enjoyed our time together. As we both got older, our scores got closer to the point where we could have friendly competition as we golfed. At this point, Pap didn't have the same distance off the tee that he once did, but he was always pulling off difficult shots around the green that I could only dream of. This was an ongoing theme, and stories similar to this one happened more than once. We were on hole number 4 at the country club, and I hit a nice drive. Pap tapped his tee shot, and as the ball barely dribbled to the fairway, he muttered to himself, "Keep your head down, William." His second shot sailed into the trees on the side of the fairway. My second shot went up somewhere close to the green. I was feeling really good about my chances of winning this hole. Pap then hit out of the trees and towards the green. It was a good shot, except for the fact that the greenside bunker got in the way, kerplunk into the sand. Did I mention I was feeling good about my chances to win this hole? While Pap got his clubs and headed to his ball in the sand, I finished out with a chip and 2 putts for a 5. He would need to make a difficult sand shot onto the green and then make a 1 putt just to tie me. He casually walked up to his ball, threw his cigar down on the ground, and without taking a practice swing, took a shot from the sand. His favorite yellow ball bounced once, bounced twice, hit the center of the pin, and dropped in the hole for a 4. Before I could pick my jaw up off the green, Pap picked his cigar up off the grass, stuck it back in the side of his mouth, and even with that big cigar, he managed a big smile as he approached me. He rubbed the top of my head as he nonchalantly said, "And that's how you play this hole, kid." I will carry the image of that smile through his cigar with me forever. I love you, Pap. And the way I hit out of the sand, if you want to sprinkle a little bit of your magic dust on me next time I find myself in a bunker, I sure could use it. Thanks, Jordan. This is from both Julie and Jana, granddaughters Julie and Jana. As the older granddaughters, we have memories of sparking that twinkle in Pap's eyes whenever we would sneak down the steps at the house and stick our heads through the railing along the steps to see if he was in his usual spot playing solitaire. We would hear the familiar "ho" then when he saw us and giggle at how funny his greeting sounded to our ears. Sometimes we would pop in for a visit at his work, and Pap always seemed proud to introduce us and show us off to his coworkers. We were certainly proud of him. What a smart and important man he seemed to be to us as young school-age girls. The things he could do were impressive to us. Travel to Japan and bring us back something pretty? Yes, he did that. Build a playhouse for our backyard that to us seemed like the best creation of all time? Yes, he did that. Build us shelves to hold our sports trophies and medals and bookshelves to fit over our desk when we went away to college? Yes, we can check all those things off the list as well. What a handy man. And to top that off, he had a lot of history books to share with us when we became interested in such things at school. And he was an expert at shooting pool, a game neither of us could ever get the hang of. We loved to tell our friends that Pap started his own business, Waynesboro Design Services. And wasn't it cool that the name of it was on our softball jerseys for several years as our sponsor? Certainly no one can argue that Pap was a brilliant businessman and handyman who took pride in providing for his family. We are thankful for all that he did for us, from marrying Grandma, probably his best decision ever, and coming home every day at lunch to eat with her, something that also left an impression on us as young granddaughters, to raising our own mother to be just like her. Although Pap hasn't known or recognized us for several years now, whenever we stopped by, he would still always greet us with a smile. It was the same smile that we remembered when we popped in for a visit at his work as little girls. The loss of his memory didn't take his smile, and for that we are so thankful. The memory of his blue eyes and smile, along with his chicken corn soup recipe, will be with us forever. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. I'd like to just take you on a quick tour of Dad's life, sharing with you some of the stories that he shared with us kids. Memories that were special to him, and because of that, they were special to us. And along the way, not just Dad's memories, but I'll add some memories that belong to myself and Judy and Bob as well. Dad would talk a lot, especially here in these latter years, these past few years, about his childhood, growing up in Wayne Heights. It's just about everything faded from his memory bank. Just a few memories from his childhood would linger. He held on to memories of his sisters. Whenever I would visit him, he would always be quick to tell me, sometimes several times, that his older sister Betty was born almost exactly a year ahead of him, and that his sister May was born a few years later. Talked about the house that he grew up there in Wayne Heights, reminding us of how short a walk it was to the school, just a block away. He talked about this hill that was right there, near the house, and how he just, in the wintertime, loved to sled down that hill. And then when Betty and May and Dad and family moved out to Rouserville, after Dad was in 5th grade, Germantown Road, there was a hill there on the far side of the property, and he'd tell me, what a great sledding hill that was. I'm convinced that winter was Dad's favorite season because he would often talk about just how much he loved to sled when he was a kid. Now, the schools that Dad went to growing up would have been east of Waynesboro, Wayne Heights School, and then what's now the Hooverville Elementary School was actually the high school, Washington Township High School, back in the 1950s. But then just a year before Dad and Mom would have graduated, there was, it was called the consolidation. They consolidated the schools. And so Dad, who was attending Washington Township out there, went into town where Mom had grown up and was going to school. And so during their senior years, they met. And there are two stories that Dad would tell about how he and Mom came to be a couple during their senior year. The one took place out at the Big Dipper out in Rouserville, a story that we've heard many times. Dad was there with some friends of his, and Mom was there at a nearby table with some friends of hers. And a friend of Dad's just happened to say, hey, I wonder who that cute redhead is, over there at the table. And Dad said, I don't know, but I'm going to have to find out. And the funny thing is, I never heard how the story went after that, so it makes me always think, I wonder what happened if maybe Dad was rebuffed, that night. I'm not sure. But the second story came about when Dad broke a tooth during the last day of football practice. And because he broke a tooth, it kind of became news around the school. And so led to Mom walking up to Dad at one point and asking if she could see his tooth. And one thing led to another, and here we are. Once Dad and Mom graduated from high school, they married, and Dad took a job at Landis Tool Company as an apprentice. Just started in on the entry-level ground floor. And it was during the early days of Landis Tool that Judy and Bob and myself came into the picture. And obviously, we all have our own stories, but one thing we all had in common was thinking that our dad was one of the smartest men that we have ever known. He could see things, and he could analyze things. He could design things that were way beyond me. And the thing is, though, other people were able to see that as well. And he quickly, over the course of the next 15, 20 years, just worked his way up, through Landis Tool until he became vice president of engineering, one of the vice presidents at Tool Company. My wife's brother, Karen's brother, Tim, lives out in California. And when he graduated from college, he worked for just a brief period of time in at Tool Company. And after graduating from college, he texted me earlier this week. He said he had fond memories of the day when my dad, as vice president, would walk into what was called the R&D team rooms there at Landis. And Tim said when Dad walked into the room, my dad was in charge, and everybody knew it. Because Dad did a lot of traveling with Landis Tool, and I mean a lot. Dad was back and forth to Europe, many times, in Japan numerous times. We were able to get in on some of the summer, trips, the business trips that Dad would make here in the States. As kids, we spent part of a summer out in Michigan. Bob reminded me the other day, we stayed at a Holiday Inn. I forgot all about this. And somehow, he was really young at the time. He got himself locked in the bathroom, at the in the hotel room. And I just couldn't get out. And again, I forgot all about it. But just remember, it came back to my mind and how Dad and all of us, were just frantically working, trying to get Bob out of the bathroom. We took family vacations to Green Bay. I was a Packer fan even then. Dad saw that we got to Green Bay. We went to St. Louis to visit his sister May. Saw some Cardinal games while we were there. We went to Ocean City, Battle Creek. His sister May lived in Battle Creek, Michigan for a while, where the Kellogg's plant is. So we went to visit them and toured the Kellogg's plant. That was big things for us as kids. And again, for our family, with Dad working at a tool company, there was the annual Landis Tool Company picnic up at Williams Grove. That was just a big highlight for all of us. Bob was talking the other day. He recalled how every year at Christmas, no artificial tree. Dad always would get a live tree. And Dad was very particular when it came to hanging on the lights and the tinsel. And so Dad would put the lights on the tree. He was responsible for putting the lights on, while whichever one of us kids drew the short straw, we would stand behind him and we would feed him the light strand. And Dad would say, "Slack, I need more slack. Give me more slack." And it became a joke, Dad needing more slack throughout the years. Don't throw the tinsel on the tree, one piece at a time. Dad's parents, like I said, they lived out on Germantown Road. They had this outdoor fire, grill, pit, whatever. And Bob talked about how Dad would take us out there, family. And Dad and his father would cook this great outdoor breakfast, eggs and Canadian bacon and Welch's grape juice. Good memories. Bob remembers how Dad taught him how just the right way to pick strawberries and just the right way to plant potatoes. Judy and I, we share a similar story, a memory of Dad. She played field hockey when she was in high school, and every day after practice, she had to be on the street corner right near the high school where Dad would be passing by on the way home from Landis and on the way home to Hillendale, where we lived. Judy said, "Boy, you needed to be ready to get that hockey stick and then yourself in the car in short order, because Dad was a man who was always on the move. He didn't want to fool around." I played basketball at East Junior High School, and it was across from the hospital at the time. And every day after practice, I had to be there on that sidewalk, right there in front of the school. Instead of a hockey stick, I had a trombone case. And so we both had our work cut out for us. Hey, personally, some of my best memories of Dad were when Dad was standing at one end of the backyard there in Hillendale with a baseball in one hand, a bat in the other. And I'd be standing down at the other end of the yard with a little glove in my hand, and Dad would just hit me fly ball after fly ball. I was in Little League and just practicing. We'd go into the local ball fields, and, Dad would just pitch, pitch after pitch, and batting practice, and, the whole family, in the outfield and everything. In the wintertime, Sunday afternoons, we'd be watching football on TV, and when the game reached halftime, I'd grab a football, and Dad and I would go outside, and we would just circle the house, just keep circling the house. He'd be the quarterback, and I'd be the runner. I did all the running. I'd go out for short passes, long passes, and I'd catch it and run the ball back to him, and then I'd go out for another pass, and we would just do that, just keep circling the house until it was time to come back in, and watch the second half of the game. Lots of good memories. At the same time, when Judy and Bob and I were talking the other day, we were talking about a less than pleasant memory, and that was what would happen every year at Labor Day. You see, for most of the country, Labor Day is a holiday. It's a time to rest from all the normal labor that takes place throughout the year. But as Judy said, for Labor Day, labor meant labor. And so Dad would ramp it up a bit. And every year, for a couple of years there, Dad would run a thatcher. And we would proceed to thatch the entire yard. It's just drawing all the dead grass out of the grass there. It meant endless raking and blisters and dehydration, and at the end of the day, all that dead grass that couldn't be seen in the first place, was removed, and the yard was safe for another year. When I started driving, he taught me how to change and rotate my tires. Taught me that whenever I was about to make a left-hand turn and there was traffic that was oncoming, to always keep the wheel, tires pointed forward, not to anticipate, not to turn them a while. If you get rear-ended, you want to go forward. You don't want to get pushed into oncoming traffic. We all grew up, and eventually we started raising our own families. Dad and Mom would continue to travel, went to Bermuda lots of times, and did a lot of golfing together out at the country club. Dad left Tool Company and started his own business, eventually starting Waynesburg Design Services. And again, from our perspective, anything that Dad did, he was successful at. His new business turned out to be a success, and I think it brought him a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment, a lot of purpose and pleasure in the latter years of his work life. And I think all of us would say Dad was just a really great and caring grandfather to Julie and Jana and Jordan, Ben, and Tyler, and Olivia. Cigars and solitaire. Two things that Dad thoroughly enjoyed. There were a number of years, many years, where if you saw Dad, you're almost certain you were going to see a cigar in his mouth or in his hand or somewhere nearby. And for many years, Dad played an awful lot of solitaire. And we were glad to see it, especially here in these latter years, because we were thinking it would maybe keep his mind sharp. He took a board, with him to Providence Place a year and a half ago when he went there, And when he first got there, he was still able to play by the rules. And there was one time where I was sitting there visiting him and wasn't really paying attention, but he had what he called a winner, and he had the last card in his hand, the last king to play, and he said, "Hey, got my attention." I looked over at him, and he looked at me with that little gleam in his eye and waved it, and then triumphantly put it down, in the last pile, And then solitaire was a way for us to be able to kind of gauge his regression as time went on. Instead of every 3 cards, it was every card, and sometimes instead of the cards in descending order, they were in ascending order, and piles would end up all over the place. And then it got to the point where earlier this year, he pretty much stopped playing altogether. As far as church, Dad wasn't much for coming in and sitting through a service. If you knew Dad, you knew he couldn't sit at any one place for very long. But over these past 10, 20 years or so, Dad was a friend to the church here at Five Forks. He had his workshop, and if there was anything that the church needed built and made out of wood, Dad could and he would build it for us. He would come and pick me up there for a while every month, and we would run over to Hagerstown in his pickup truck, and we would get food, bring it back here to our food pantry so it could be handed out to individuals and families in the community. When it reached the point that Dad could no longer drive, rather than selling the truck, he donated it. He gave it to the church so that we would be able to continue to make those food pickups every month. Up until about 2 years ago, every Friday afternoon, I'd go get Dad in at the house, 1 o'clock every Friday, and pick him up and bring him out here to the church. And he would run the machines. He would help run the machines that would print the bulletins for that Sunday services and help run the machine that would fold the bulletins for that Sunday services. Just punching buttons and sometimes typing in numbers and everything. And again, his world grew smaller, and he was more limited as time went on as far as what he could do. But it was good for us to spend that time together every Friday for a number of years there. And so over the course of the past 10 years or so, Dad volunteered quite a few hours to various ministries of the church, even as his world grew gradually smaller. Now, we know it's not our good deeds that make us right with God. It's the knowing and trusting Jesus. And so here in these later years, it would do my heart good when every now and then I would hear Dad begin to sing the words to Jesus Loves Me. He remembered a number of songs from his childhood, but that was the one that he seemed to know best and sing the best. Sometimes when I'd go to visit him, I just would start singing it, under my breath, real low, and he would hear me, and then he'd just join in. There was another song that these past few years he would sing. He'd sing just a part of it, just the first few lines. It could be in the middle of summer, and Mom would be up in the kitchen. She'd be working and making dinner or something like that, and Dad would be down in his familiar recliner with his table in front of him, playing solitaire. And just out of the blue, she would hear him begin. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild. At this point, he's just about done, but he gets that one more line. God and sinners reconciled. And he would always stop right there, never go any further. And I don't know if it was because he didn't know the words, after that, or if it got too high, to sing. I'd like to think that maybe it's because that line says it all. God and sinners reconciled because of Jesus, who loves us, who loved Dad. This he knows. 3 of us kids, we want to express our appreciation to Mom for the care that she gave to Dad over these last couple of years for as long as she could. It had to be incredibly challenging. I want to thank Denny Coons for just coming by every Tuesday afternoon and just sitting with Dad and listening to his stories. And I want to express our appreciation to the folks at Providence Place. Dad called home for the last year and a half of his life. Opportunities. We got to see Dad. We all got to see Dad every week before March, and all of us would. Dad got lots of visits every week. But then it came to an end in March, and for 4 months, none of us were able to get in and see him. Mom got in twice here in these last couple of months, and incredibly, Mom had a chance to visit Dad just 2 weeks ago yesterday. And she took him some fig Newtons, which she knew that he liked, and he thoroughly enjoyed them. And he marveled as he was talking to her about how straight the trees were, that sat out there behind Providence Place. He saw Mom coming through the glass door, and as Mom was taken to the back patio where she would meet with Dad as they were bringing him down the hall, he turned to one of the staff and he said, "You know that woman there in the pink? That's my wife." And he no longer recognized us kids as his kids, but we are so grateful for the fact that he continued to recognize Mom as his wife throughout the entirety of his life. We all enjoyed our visits with him, and he seemed to genuinely enjoy our visits as well. When we'd get off the elevator and step out into the hallway, he'd often be walking the halls. He'd be there with his walker. When he would see us, he wouldn't know who we were, but he knew it was a familiar face, and he'd get a smile on his face. He'd throw up his hand. We slept well at night, knowing that Dad was content, and he remained content for his entire life. And at the end of the day, that's all we could ask for. At this point, I'm going to ask Benjamin's wife, Sarah, to come up and minister to us at this time. Sarah, if you would.
What will it be like when my pain is gone and all the worries of this world just fade away? What will it be like when you call my name, and in that moment when I see you face to face? Waiting my whole life to hear you say, well done, my good and faithful one. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done, my beloved child. You have run the race and now you're home. Welcome to the place where you belong. What will it be like when tears are washed away and every broken thing will finally be made whole? What will it be like when I come into your glory and standing in the presence of a love so beautiful? I'm waiting my whole life for that day. I will live my life to hear you say, well done, my good and faithful one. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done, my beloved child. You have run the race and now you're home. Welcome to the place where you belong. What will it be like when I hear that sound? All of heaven's angels crying out, singing, holy, holy, holy are you, Lord. Singing, holy, singing, holy, holy, holy are you, Lord. I'm waiting my whole life for that day. Until then, I'll live to hear you say, well done, oh, well done, my good and faithful one. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done, oh, well done, my beloved child. You have run the race and now you're home. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done.
Thanks, Sarah. I'd like to close the service with a short meditation, and I'm glad for the opportunity to talk about an event that I will often look to share whenever I get the chance to lead a memorial service. It's my favorite story, passage at a time like this, and there's no close second. And so I know some of you have heard this before, but again, I just love this story. In the scriptures, fascinating story of how Jesus connected and ministered to two sisters who were grieving the loss of a loved one. This time, in this case, it was their brother. And as we look at this, you can see how Jesus can step into your life and connect and minister to you as well. The sisters' names are Mary and Martha, and the brother's name is Lazarus. Stories found in John's Gospel, chapter 11, and I'm going to sum it up very quickly. I'm going to give you what happens at the beginning and then tell you what happens at the end. But what I want us to take a look at is what happens in the middle of this story, because it shows us just how Jesus just knows us so well and looks to connect with us. Here's the gist of it. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they are friends of Jesus. Jesus has stayed with them at their place when he's been in that area in the past. But at one point when Jesus is not in the area, Lazarus took sick and he lay dying. Well, when word gets to Jesus, he doesn't do anything but wait. He just waits for several days until Lazarus does pass, and then, and only then, does he head for the hometown of Mary and Martha. So that's the beginning of the story, and it's really a story of a delayed response on Jesus' part. Here's how it ends. Jesus goes to the tomb where Lazarus had been laid 4 days prior, and he gives the order for the stone to be moved away from the entrance, and he commands Lazarus to come out. And when Lazarus comes walking out of the tomb, everybody's amazed, and many people end up putting their faith in Jesus. And that's great, but there's something really fascinating that happens in the middle. As I said, when Jesus got word that Lazarus was dying, he purposefully waited until he actually died before he headed in that direction. John chapter 11, verse 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, under ordinary circumstances, those were probably pretty hard words for Jesus to hear. It's almost like Martha is holding Jesus responsible for her brother's death. Jesus, if you had been here, if you'd only been here, my brother would not have died. Well, here's how Jesus answers Martha. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Now think about what Jesus is saying here. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. Even though these bodies decay, even though our physical bodies are perishable, those who believe in me, Jesus says, they will live forever. Yeah, the body will die, but those who believe in me will live on. Now, some people would look at Jesus' response here and say, that's kind of cold. You know, even though what he's saying is really great, it's really kind of matter of fact. The doctrine is doctrine. It's the doctrine of spiritual life after physical death. But it must have been what Martha needed. Jesus must have sensed that Martha needed words that would affirm the reality of life after death, words that would have just reached into the depths of her heart and helped her to know that even though her brother had died, he wasn't really dead, that he would continue to live. And so Jesus gave Martha the words that she needed to hear. Now, Mary, we know, stayed back when Martha first went out to approach Jesus. But Martha, after talking to Jesus, she went back to Mary and told her that Jesus was asking for her. Well, Martha got up quickly and she left. Verse 32, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Exact same words. Exact same words that Martha had said to Jesus when she had approached him earlier. But what's fascinating here is Jesus' response. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. And he asked them, where have you laid him? And then Jesus began to weep. And this is exactly what Mary needed. She didn't need doctrine. She needed to know that Jesus was feeling what she was feeling. She needed to know that Jesus cared. Two sisters approaching Jesus and saying the exact same thing, and yet Jesus gives both of them, each of them, a totally different response. There are some of you here this afternoon, and you are looking for answers, you are looking for confirmation or reassurance regarding the reality of life after death. You need to hear from the mouth of Jesus that our spirit lives on even after our physical bodies have died. And so you let Jesus speak those words of reassurance to you here this afternoon. Some of you, you don't need that, however. What you need is for Jesus to come alongside of you and just to let you know that he cares. He feels what you're feeling. You need to know that he hurts with you. You see, different hearts have different needs. And if you need words, then let Jesus speak. And if you just need for him to sit with you right now and throughout this day, and then later on tonight when it's all gone quiet, you invite him to do that. He knew what Martha needed. He knew exactly what Mary needed. He knows what you need. He knows what each of us need. And he's more than willing and able to meet that. So let Jesus minister to you today and in the days to come. Would you pray with me? Jesus, the truth is, you know us better than we know ourselves. You know us better than we know ourselves. You know what each of us need. Right here, right now, later today, tonight. And some of us, Lord, we need, just those words of reassurance. Some of us, we just want your presence. We just want to sense your presence right now. And I'm so thankful that you know each of us and you, again, desire to meet us wherever we are at. Jesus, you are the one that makes the reality of life after death possible by defeating the power of sin on the cross and showing your power over death by your resurrection. And so we thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you've done for Dad. Thank you for what you've done for each of us. And may each of us know what it is to put our faith, our lives, into your hands. Pray this in your name. Amen. Sarah, if you would, come back up one last time, and she's going to remind us about the incredible faithfulness of God.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hands hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hands hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, just an announcement or two for those of you going with us to the cemetery. We do ask drivers of those vehicles, turn on your headlights and your four-way flashers. Stay as close to the vehicle in front of you as safety will allow. As we, the procession, start through any intersections, a red light, stop signs, you may always continue without stopping. The funeral procession always has the right-of-way in those situations. We do ask that you're cautious of oncoming traffic as they're not always watching for us. Also, if you're going with us to the cemetery, when you go out to your vehicles, Please stay parked exactly where you are. My staff will be in the parking lot to direct you to pull out at the appropriate time. At this time, if I could have the gentleman serving as pallbearers meet me at the back of the church. Everyone else, we will dismiss you row by row momentarily.